Um, because he felt at that time that he had paid more than his fair share of taxes. I believe he said it over $50 million in his adult lifetime. Obviously, when he created the antivirus, and up until he was deported back from Guatemala to America. So in between that time, he had paid taxes, and he felt that he had paid his fair share. And this, taxes being taxation being theft was the hill that he wanted to die on, if you will. He really felt passionate about that they were illegal. Obviously, they are unconstitutional taxes, income taxes, and just trying to, I don't know if it maybe his philosophy, but he just wanted to wake people up. He just wanted to wake people up from their slumber of this is how life is, because it's always been this way. This is how it has to always be. Because I was raised to believe this, or because I was taught to believe this or do this, this is what I have to do. I can't step outside of the box of normality, whatever that is for each individual. And he wanted to very much break that, that illusion or whatever. He just wanted to shock people out of their slumber, and wake up to the reality of the world around us, and try to help get people present in the now. We're so focused on either the regrets of our past or what we want our future to be that we're missing what's happening now.
This week on Monero Talk is sponsored by Monero.com wallet. Store, send, receive, and exchange your Monero safely on iOS and Android too. Monero.com wallet is open source, and you always control your own keys. And by IVPN. Resist online surveillance with IVPN, a privacy-focused, audited, and transparent VPN provider that accepts Monero directly. And by StealthEX, an instant exchange where privacy is the top concern. Go to stealthex.io to instantly exchange between Monero and 450 plus assets without having to create an account or register, and with no limits, making StealthEX a simple way to purchase Monero with crypto anonymously. Monero Talk is also made possible from contributions by viewers and listeners like you. And supporting us is easier than ever. By typing in monerotalk.crypto in your Monero.com or Cake wallet send address field to send us a tip. This week on Monero Talk. Douglas Tuman interviews Janice McAfee, wife of late John McAfee, who continues to share the message of individual liberty, speaking out against corruption, and changing the narrative around privacy coins by helping victims of abuse. The two discuss what Janice has been up to since John passed away, how Monero can give a glimpse hope for people in abusive circumstances, spreading crypto, creating parallel economies, the impact of John's philosophy, amazing stories from exile, living off the grid, the suspicions, circumstances of John's death, and much more. Monero Talk starts now.
All right. Janice, thanks for coming on. Welcome to Monero Talk.
Thank you for having me, Douglas. Or is it Doug?
Either one.
Okay.
Whatever you think I deserve. Am I Doug, Douglas? It depends.
You look like a Douglas, but maybe when you're drinking, having fun, you're a Doug. I don't know.
Dougie Fresh. I get Dougie Fresh a lot. That's when I'm acting like McAfee, when I'm trying to do my best to live life to its full.
Awesome.
So I greatly appreciate you coming on. I know you've kind of been doing the rounds and getting yourself out there and telling the story. Mostly, I think, because you wanted to get some help and some support with getting John's body finally released. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so I haven't been following it all that closely, so I'm glad I'm doing this show because I know there's probably a lot of other people who don't really know the story. I know you've been talking about it a lot, and I recommend people go elsewhere to watch like the really good detailed breakdown on that, because I don't want to spend the whole time talking about it. I'd rather talk about what you're looking to do now. But if you can just kind of give a recap of where things are at, so we all know.
Okay, so since John passed, there was an investigation opened up into his passing, and the prison opened up the investigation. So they were keeping his remains because of that. And when they tried to close the investigation, I asked them for his autopsy report, and they said that I didn't need it. So I went ahead and asked my attorney to file an appeal to another court so that I could have the autopsy report released, because there was some troubling things that I noticed in the police report that made me feel like I needed to see, what the actual cause of death was, and how I just wanted to have that information. And so because they haven't yet decided on whether or not they want to release the autopsy report, they're still holding his remains. So his remains are still being held in Barcelona in their morgue, and the decision was supposed to come down last month, because that was their deadline, and they still have yet to respond or give a response for the appeal. So that's where it is now. And I just started doing, well, not just started, but I've been kind of talking about this all along. But trying to grieve and trying to deal with the different situations that's been happening here since John died. I've not been exactly safe here, and just trying to deal with that. I wasn't really like in a good headspace to kind of deal with speaking to people publicly. And so now I'm, I guess, a little more able to handle this. So now I'm trying to really get the word out, and obviously trying to figure out a way to just move forward and figure out how to be just Janice McAfee, without John. So
I'm sure I could only imagine it must be, and also because it's so public, right? This isn't a typical scenario where you're just grieving. I mean, he was a public figure,
yeah.
worldwide famous. So many people were watching him and following him. So I can only imagine just the pressure you feel of having to deal with this situation. But I commend the way you've been dealing with it. So, I did my research today. I've been watching your videos and stuff. I'm sure he would be, or he is smiling down. I'm sure he's very proud of what you're doing. What would you say? Obviously you're on the mission to do the right thing, as the wife of John, and get his remains and take care of that. But what would you say is kind of your other mission right now in life? What is that? I'm seeing a drive. How would you define it? What is this mission that you're on right now?
Just trying to, like I said, just trying to figure out life without John, and trying to find my way, my space, my lane, if you will, what works for me. And obviously being with John and being able to be present with him when he was doing interviews and going and doing talks. And he was always so passionate about individual freedom and financial freedom, and exposing corruption, or at least just waking people up to the massive amount of corruption that is the world governments. It's not just an American problem. It's a problem that is throughout every government. If you give people power, they will abuse it. This is just the nature of power. It corrupts people, especially if they're already have a tendency to lean towards corruption before they had the power. So, and it's something, his message always resonated with me, and it's something that I felt passionate about as well. Although my passion is more, it's similar to his, but it's also, I have my own, because of my background. I'm very, I want to help women that are in abusive relationships and abusive situations, and not just women, but men as well, children. I want to be more vocal about that, about my story, because I think it could help people, and I would love to be able to help in, just whatever way I can with people in those situations. And to tie this into crypto, the reason why I'm passionate about crypto is because if I had a means, or if I had the knowledge of crypto at the time, although I don't think it was really popular or that big at the time, when I was when I met John, I was being pimped out by a very abusive man, and so I was a working girl when I met John. And if I had crypto, or if crypto was more readily available at that time, then I would have had the means to get away from him. I would have been able to have money to save and just put that separation that's needed. When you're in a dangerous situation. And I think if this is more readily understood to people in these sort of situations, then they can see a glimpse of hope of how they can get away from, because not everybody wants to go to the cops and have them busting down the door. And, sometimes we just want to quietly just get away and just not see the person anymore. And a lot of times that's enough to get separation. And obviously, sometimes the police may need to get involved. But if women, men, children, whomever, if they have the means to provide for themselves, you know, then I think a lot of the abuse that we see in the world today can, it wouldn't completely stamp it out, but it definitely would help if people had a way to financially provide for themselves.
Is that one of the things you're trying to do, is kind of clarify or change the narrative around privacy coins? Because I mean, often just the way you spoke about it was fantastic, right? You're highlighting, one of the positive, liberating features. Often, unfortunately, people, nobody in this community, but outsiders would point to, the negative implications of privacy coin
Right.
and digital cash, how you could do all these nefarious things. Yeah. So
People,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, people, you can do all of these sort of nefarious things with fiat, you know. So what's the difference? We're not banning fiat, and I I guess maybe you can say I would like to change the narrative on privacy coins, or maybe honestly just introduce it to people in these communities where they need a safe way to save money.
Yeah.
It's so important. I like hiding money. If I tried to hide money from my pimp and he found it, I would get beaten, and so that was already happening, and it was just a massive risk to me, and like I said, had I been able to had the funds to get away from him, I would have been able to do it, but I wouldn't have never met John also. So, I'm not saying that I regret, the choices. Well, I do kind of wish I chose differently for my life, but it led me to meeting John, and I wouldn't change that. I'm happy that I got to have him in my life and I got to be a part of his life. And I just want to try to continue to share his message with people, because at the end of the day, whether people want to call him crazy or paranoid or any of that, he was brilliant, and he had a real love for people, and he wanted to see them live their best lives, and he wanted people to be free financially and in every way free, but especially financially, and that's why he was very outspoken about crypto.
Cryptocurrency, the blockchain and cryptocurrency together, because as we are moving on, the blockchain is used for things other than cryptocurrency, which are connected to cryptocurrency. Okay, if that makes any sense. The value is that we get to create or use what someone else has created, a currency that is controlled by no one, that is ours. I mean, cryptocurrency and the blockchain, it's the first technology that has arisen in the past 100 years that did not come from the bowels of a secret government program or a major corporation. It came from the people, ordinary people, really. Well, maybe not all ordinary, but normal people. A bunch of geeky developers, all right? Eggheads, some of them. Built something, made it open source, and from that small beginning, we have built through progressively more complex and powerful blockchains, something that people without government have never built before. You realize this is not a government program, people. This is a people program. And no one is getting on board in the proper fucking way. I mean, I just described how it can free us, and everybody's jumping on board, but not to free themselves, to make a quick buck. Jump into the exchanges. What's going to go up? What's going to go down? And I'll tell you now that financial freedom is not possible. A lot of money, that's possible. Freedom from having to worry about eating, at least for today, because I promise you, no matter how much you have, it can't be wiped out overnight by the vagaries of reality. So, no, that doesn't make you free. What makes you free is having control over your life without massive surveillance, massive influence from the outside, massive cage that you have to live inside in order to make peace with that system.
Yeah, I think I saw in one of your interviews somebody asked you, was it love at first sight? And you're like, hell no.
No.
So what was it? What were the turning point? When did you first realize this guy is he's not the normal man? How long did it take before you were impressed? Okay.
I was impressed immediately. And I really, really liked him. I never liked a guy. There was always some sexual thing happening, but I just liked him, without the sex, none of that. I just liked his personality, his swag, and he was just very real, very genuine. And when did the love happen? I don't know. It probably happened gradually throughout the years, and until it came to the point where I actually noticed it. I'd never been in love before. I'd had previous relationships, but I don't like to call them relationships. I like to call them situationships. So I never had a non-toxic relationship before, and that's what I was able to have with him. Well, that's what it grew into. Obviously, there were issues initially, but that's what it grew into, and it was beautiful. So yeah, I can say I was in love with him.
It's beautiful.
That did happen eventually.
Yeah, so what would you say? What did you guys bond over? I mean, what was the real connection there? I know it's hard to define, obviously, but there's
it is
sticks out as
Wow. I don't know. I guess maybe just I understood his need for security, right? And I was very situationally aware, and he would always talk about that. And I think maybe that's what helped us to bond, because the way that he had to go about protecting himself, he didn't have to explain it to me. It was something that I had learned because of my previous experience of being a working girl, just how to be watchful of people, always on guard, but not in a paranoid way, but just being cautious, about your surroundings, about who's around you. And so, like I said, he didn't have to teach me those things. We were able to kind of gel and mesh, very well in that. And then outside of that, I would just say our unwillingness to bend the knee. I refuse to bend the knee to people or
you're just both
that girl. Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think that was able to develop more because I was with him, because he was such a badass. So it was easy to be badass with him, but now it's going to be the real test of my badassery.
You're doing a good job. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. So that makes a ton of sense the way you describe it. So yeah, you were able to instantly understand why this guy was so obsessed about privacy and being tracked and being you understood the security from because you were going through it yourself. That's really interesting. I mean, so what do you think we can do as a community to grow crypto, to grow privacy coins, Monero in particular? Are you into Monero more than others, or what is your take on crypto and privacy coins?
I am into Monero more so than others, just because John was. I will admit I heavily relied on John's expertise when it comes to crypto, and so obviously Monero. I'm also obviously biased towards Ghost by McAfee. You know, that was his coin he was working on, and it was created to be wrapped in Monero protocol. So that's what he was looking to do with the Ghost. I'm not sure, you know, what's happening with that project now, since John has passed, but obviously I hope good things are in store for them. But what can we do as a community? I think there needs to be more unity in the community. I think there needs to be less tribalism as it relates to various tokens, various coins. You know, I think everyone is in such a rush to make money. You know, everything must be profitable, and obviously this is what, you know, we have to live and eat and, you know, take care of our families. So we want to make profits, of course, but that shouldn't be what drives us. You know, we should be wanting to build sustainable projects that answer a need, you know, answers a need that the public has, you know, like medical or dental or whatever it is, you know, for roads. If you have like a road coin, I think my friend Rob Loggia brought that up, you know, you have a road coin where you know, you want to travel, and instead of, you know, you just, I guess, as you're traveling, you just, you know, pay your little road coin and you can travel on this road, you know. And we're talking about taxes. That's a way to implement a way where we can still continue to take care of our infrastructure, you know, without overly taxing people, you know. And
Yeah.
John spoke a lot about those sort of ways. I'm sorry, I'm getting off into something.
No.
But, talking about taxes, but.
Because I listened back to my interview with him. It was almost 3 years ago to the day, because I interviewed him. I remember, because it was the day after Thanksgiving. So I was at my parents' house for Thanksgiving weekend. So I was literally in my parents' basement. It was like that meme where like so I was a podcaster in my parents' basement. It was really, really bad quality, but I got to interview John, and it was like surreal. It was surreal. I remember coming upstairs to my family, and they're like, "So who'd you talk to today?" I was like, John McAfee. They're like, what? It was amazing. It was a surreal moment for me, but I listened back to the interview, and it was, I mean, I was pretty cringe, but the content was amazing. He really, was asking about crypto. And so what he really saw, you know, from that interview, what he was saying was, as the, you know, the value proposition was what he sees as the transactional nature of it, the utility and the ability to be able to transact peer to peer. Because I was pushing him on the digital gold thing. What he believes, he thinks that's kind of like hogwash and silly, you know, digital gold thing. But what gives it real utility is that it can be used for sending transactions, and, you know, particularly privately, you know, it can't be stopped. Nobody can stop you without government intervention. So, I mean, that's one of the things we talk about as maybe focusing on, right? Just like building this parallel economy together, and think of it in those terms, whatever tools we may be using. You know, Monero, I would say ideally that's what most would opt into, but like kind of focusing on building out the economy where people actually are using this stuff peer to peer.
Yeah, I think, yes, that's definitely would help to kind of bring mass adoption to it if it was more usable for just the regular average person. I think that's something that we neglect as well as a part of the current people in the crypto community. There's nothing that's really user friendly for the average user, you know, for someone who's maybe not as technically savvy and hasn't invested the time to dive deep into what crypto really is and different projects. So, and obviously, you know, that's up to them. You know, they would need to do that because it's their money if they want to be smart about it and protect it, you know. So but I think that would also help as well. But the usability is obviously a big thing.
Yeah, just getting people to use it, to transact. I got to ask, I hope I'm not crossing any lines. What happened to John's crypto? I haven't been following that story. I mean, I imagine the guy had some crypto. I imagine he had some Monero. So what's going on?
You know, there was a thing with the boat.
On the boating accident. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, our boat was confiscated in Guatemala, and we haven't seen the coin since then. So
So you guys literally are the living personification of losing your crypto in a boating accident. That's very John-esque, McAfee. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that the keys have sunk to the bottom of the ocean.
Yes, if there's anyone listening, if the IRS is listening, that's exactly what happened.
Wow. Okay. Did John like use crypto a lot? Was he like using it to transact and stuff?
Yes, there was a Bentley that he bought. I don't know if he posted a picture, I think on Twitter, his blue Bentley that he bought using crypto. I think he also bought a Corvette for me with crypto.
Nice.
I mean, he tried to use it as much as he could, as much as he was able to. Obviously, we went house shopping a few places that accepted, kind of just online, not physically going there, but online. There was, I forget the name of the website, but we were, just kind of looking at houses that were available using crypto. And something really cool, we actually found a hotel in London after when we got deported from Guatemala to the UK. He was able to find a hotel that accepted Bitcoin while we were flying over. So that was pretty cool.
Nice. You should come down to Mexico City in May. We're going to do a Monero conference.
Nice. Mexico City. I don't think I'm allowed in Mexico, though. I think John said anywhere in South America, just because of my relationship to him, I should probably stay away from.
Oh, okay.
From there.
Where are you right now? You're still in Spain?
I'm in Spain. I'm still in Spain.
And so
it's beautiful here. It's a little chilly, but it's beautiful. And if I were here under different circumstances, I would probably enjoy it very much. But it is beautiful, yeah.
You think you're going to stay there, or you're just there until the situation? Okay.
Yeah, no. As soon as I can get his body, I'll be coming. Going back to America. That's where my children are, and I want to be with my children. So
we should mention it again at this point. I don't know if you briefly mention in the beginning, but there is a petition out, correct, to try to help sway the government. Yeah,
there's a petition. It did help initially. There's obviously it's not getting much traction now because it's a petition and they don't really do anything other than garner attention, and it did do that, and we were able to actually finally get the death certificate after the anniversary of his death, and with the petition with it was able to get that going. So it was helpful for that, and I think what will be most helpful moving forward is just me bringing awareness to people of what's happening here. So I'll be doing more interviews here locally in Spain, just to kind of put more pressure on the authorities here or on the courts here so that they can give me a decision, so I'm not just sitting here in limbo, waiting.
What's kind of your latest theory on what may have actually happened?
I think it was, I think what they may be kind of trying to hide is maybe there was some medical malpractice that occurred.
Okay.
This is why they're not willing to release his remains or the autopsy report. This is what I believe wholeheartedly. Now the bigger conspiracy of was he murdered and all of that, we can I can speculate on that till I'm blue in the face, but I just want to get the autopsy report, and I want to get his body, and if I can do that, then I'll have some answers, I'll have some answers, and I'll be able to share that with everyone, because I know people that loved him, not only just, people here on Twitter or his fans or whatever, but his family, he had family that cared about him, and I want to be able to get those answers for them as well. So.
Understandable.
I'll
I mean,
Hopefully the answers will be coming soon. So I'm sorry, please.
No, go ahead. Has there ever been a case like this where somebody they've been held up for that long where they wouldn't release the body? Is that like
This is very abnormal for Spain. Very, very abnormal. This is not something that has ever occurred before. Even with the autopsy report, I'm told it's not something that they just give out. It's not something that it's not a standard practice for them to just give it out whenever someone dies. However, if it's asked for, if it's requested, then they turn it over with no problem. And so the fact that they're not turning it over just makes me really believe that obviously they have something to hide.
And has like your theories evolved over time from when this first happened till now? So
no, just because of the police report that they did. This was the police report came from their investigation. So this is what the prison provided, after their investigation. And when they finally released that to us, I immediately, because of what I saw in the report, it immediately stood out to me that there was some medical malpractice there that occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was always, I always fully believed that. And I didn't think that they would try to drag this out. We're talking now, it's been over a year and a half now, and I'm still not able to collect his remains, which is just insane. I don't think that there's ever been a situation like this in the world, where they've just refused to release someone's remains.
Mm-hmm.
And they've kind of dragged this decision out. I don't understand that, when I filed the appeal back in February, or the attorney did, they, I initially thought it would only take maybe a couple months, or well, not even a couple months, but at the max a couple months, but a month maybe, to just give me a decision. That's literally all that I'm asking for. Yes or no, will you give me the autopsy report? But in July, I found out that they had their deadline was 6 to 8 months. So I had to wait 6 to 8 months for them to give me an answer. And now they were now past the 8th month, which would have been October. And I still don't have an answer. And I'm still, waiting for, their response on whether or not they're going to release the autopsy report, and in turn then release his remains.
Do you have theories of who might be behind what happened? I mean, I know you said it's there was malpractice there, but do you think there's other things going on? And
obviously there are other things going on, just because of how long it's been, who's involved and who's controlling it, who is making the decisions. I don't know. That's anybody's guess. But it's just clear to me that they're hiding something, and they're willing to continue to hold his body for however long they can. I think what they're trying to do maybe is just wait me out. Maybe they're hoping that I will leave and, just forget about it. But I could never do that. I want to get these answers for John, for me, for his family, and I could live with myself if I didn't try to push back,
Yeah, of course. I mean, I know one of the things he said there was, right, a dead man switch where he was going to release information, right? Wasn't that one of the things he had said?
Yes.
Is there, do you think they're trying to prevent information from going out? I mean, is there any theories there? Or?
I thought about that, actually. I did consider that maybe the reason for, in the documentary, when his ex-girlfriend, Samantha, at the end, I don't know if you saw the Running with the Devil.
I haven't watched it yet. I'm gonna watch it now.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's a spoiler alert. Then I'm sorry.
I'm going down the rabbit hole. No. It's not a spoiler alert if it's coming from you. I mean,
okay.
yeah, this is better than the documentary.
Okay. Well, there are actually articles about it where she said that John had called her and from a Texas number and, said that she was one of few people that knew he was alive
Mhm.
and that he asked her to come and run away with him. And so, why did I mention that? Oh, okay. Yes, there we are. So I brought that up to say, I think maybe it's possible that that um, it, whomever wants people to believe that he's alive so that the information doesn't get released. I do believe he had this information that he spoke about that he collected in Belize, obviously. Um, where it is, who has it, who can release it, I don't know. That's something he would have never shared with me. But if I'm just giving my opinion here, I don't think it's something, or it would be in someone's control,
Mhm.
where the authorities or whomever is interested could just go to this person or this source or whatever it is and grab it and and keep it, prevent it from being released. I think he would have found a way for it to be released, um, but without having to ask someone or put his trust in someone to release it. I think.
Do you love coffee and Monero as much as we do? Consider making gratuitous.org your daily cup. Pay with Monero for premium fresh beans, and if you like what you taste, send a digital cash tip directly to the Guatemalan farmers that made it possible. Proceeds help us grow this channel, Gratuitous, and Monero.
And how about when he got that tattoo? I mean, are you pretty confident that he meant what he said on on that tattoo?
The whacked tattoo.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Um, so he got that obviously when we were here in Spain, and it was because he was getting, as he said, subtle messages that they were coming for him, and um, things were a little bit more tense at the time, um, where we were just having to move around so much, and so I think he had it, like he said, he had information where people, where there was a credible threat maybe to his person, and so he wanted to get that tattoo. Um, I guess just as a way to let people know. I don't know, to kind of put them on alert, I guess, or I don't know, really. He always did things that were curious at the time, and then you try to figure out, okay, what was he meaning to say there?
I mean,
But
you don't think
I
it
think
was?
it's obviously what he wanted to say. But yes,
Yeah, it was right to say like if you
and,
find him dead, it was
yeah,
because he was whacked, right?
yeah, yeah.
So
Yes, and then also even with the tweet where he spoke about when he was in prison, and he said um if I'm hung, and something to the effect of, if I'm hung in my cell, or if I'm if they say I die by suicide or something, a la Epstein, know that it was of no fault of my own, basically saying I
yeah,
wouldn't suicide myself. So it's similar to the whack tattoo,
yeah, yeah.
to let it be known that he wasn't suicidal, and he wasn't. We spoke every day while he was in prison. Once he was able to get phone privileges, we spoke, and we were able to speak 3 times a day. The phone calls were only 8 minutes though, so they were really precious 8 minutes. And we would talk about everything. Obviously, initially when he went in, it was stressful. Obviously, adjusting to prison life, but I think he was handling it very well. At least I didn't hear it. I couldn't hear it in his voice. Obviously, I would have been able to tell, and sometimes I could. And he was in pain. He was always in a lot of pain just because of he's older and he had bad knees and a torn Achilles tendon that he never got surgery on. So he had these,
Oh wow.
these physical ailments that kept him in pain a lot, and they weren't really doing anything to help with that, maybe giving him Advil, but that was it. So for the most part, I think he was handling his prison term like a champ, I guess, if I can say it that way, just handling it the best that he could. that was the situation that he was in, and he just tried to manage it as best he could. They called him Papa America. He got that nickname. We call him Papa America. He always said that a lot of the prisoners were surprised that he was in there, just because of who he was and what his crime was, because they actually had him in what in America we would call general population. So that's where you're with all the other criminals, So he wasn't segregated or in like some old folks wing. He was with everybody: the murderers, the rapists, the drug traffickers, human traffickers. He
Oh,
was,
wow.
with them all. So, um, but he said that the guards were kind to him. They treated him all right. People really looked out for him. The prisoners did, anyways. They took a liking to him. Obviously, he's a very likable guy.
His
So
charisma
even though he couldn't
got him
speak,
through as usual.
yeah, yes, definitely.
That's unbelievable. What was it like? I mean, living off the grid. I mean, are you still kind of trying to live that lifestyle? Are you still following
Um,
those ways?
I'm not trying to live the lifestyle, but just because of this situation, I'm having to be continuing to be on guard. But I think honestly, I think it's something that's so ingrained in me that I will always live um, situationally aware at all times. It's just like breathing to me now. So when things happen where people are following me or something, which has happened, since John passed, and I'm not sure if it's because I'm asking questions and maybe they don't want me asking questions, but whatever the reason, I've obviously had to continue to practice the things that I learned with John, as well as the things that I learned prior to my meeting him. But I think my meeting him obviously put me in a situation where the people that were coming after John were on a whole other level than I'd ever dealt with. And so just being aware of their tactics and how they move and um, that has been very helpful for me as far as just kind of noticing a shift in my environment.
When
But being off the grid, it was very stressful. Let me answer that. It was extremely stressful being off the grid. So when we had to leave America, which was January 2019, my brother had just died November of 2018. So I'm mourning. I wasn't able to tell my family that we were leaving, but I was able to spend Christmas with my kids. It was a beautiful 2 weeks. We went to Disneyland for a week. It was awesome. So I was able to make those memories with them, which was something that I wanted to do because I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to, once we left America, John, he told me, I have to leave. He said, yeah, and it's up to you. You can choose to come with me or stay. Um,
what?
but I chose to go with him. Yes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
I
No,
was
it's no
gonna-
problem. Yeah, I chose to go with him, but wasn't completely a selfless thing or just me wanting to support him. Obviously, I wanted to do that, but also because I was named in the secret indictment, and I thought my thinking was if I stayed behind, then they would try to come after me as a means to trying to go after him, and I
Mm.
felt that he would be safer. It would be safer for me if I went with him. Um, Being on the boat was very stressful as well because you're close quarters with people, and we had the dogs with us, and but they were happy. We were docked. We weren't out to sea all the time. We were docked, at different ports,
Mhm.
so they were able to go on the beach. And my puppies, the German shepherds, they liked coconuts, so we'd have all these coconut shreddings on the back of the boat. And they got to go on the beach and just run and play and dig and have fun. So it was nice for the dogs. But really, really, it was really stressful, and John drank a lot, obviously, just
Mhm.
because he wanted to enjoy his time. He didn't know when we could have gotten caught or him being arrested or something. So obviously he enjoyed himself, but because of the stress of the situation as well, he probably overindulged a lot, but we tried to keep each other I guess I could say I tried to just minimize his stress, and I tried to just be um, someone who was just watching his back, where he could
Yeah.
feel comfortable with knowing that, you know, I'm on guard as well. I'm watching for anything that's happening or anyone that might have nefarious intent towards him. So
You
that
were
was
ride or die, ride or die.
yeah,
Man, intense relationship. Danita's got
very
to listen
intense.
to this later when she complains about the intensity of our situation. So like, come on, nothing compared to this. That's so. What was John's plan? Like, what did he tell you? Kind of his plan was. It was like there was no like we're just on the run and I have to keep moving, or was there an ultimate end of the rainbow scenario where you guys could kind of settle down and not feel and finally feel at ease? Was there a plan though?
So the initial plan was just to get to the Bahamas, because there was no income tax there, and because of the charges against him, because they were tax related. That's what the current charges were at the time. He couldn't be extradited from the Bahamas because there is no income tax in the Bahamas, and so in order to be extradited from a country, the crime that you're accused of has to be a crime in the country that you're in. So that's why we went to the Bahamas. And the plan was also to just to avoid being collected, and that's what we did. But what happened in the Bahamas was that they came up with this plan to, instead of, obviously, since they couldn't extradite him, so then they decided, he said he got word somehow, I'm not sure, that they were going to plan on coming and arresting him for anything, whatever it was, drunken, disorderly, something, just to get him in custody and then ship him back to America. And so what happened one day, when he found that out, we went sort of into hiding on the island, and we had security footage or security cameras on our boat, and we had some footage of the police actually coming onto the boat while we were in hiding. So from there we left and went to Cuba, and obviously I don't think I need to explain why we went to Cuba because it's clear that Cuba would never cooperate with America under any circumstances.
Yeah.
So we were relatively comfortable there, very comfortable actually, for a few months. But then what happened with that was that John and I were out, and one day someone came to our boat with a slip saying that they wanted John to come to this area or to meet with someone. It didn't say who. And so I went with him, and it looked like old army barracks or something. I don't know. It looked very scary. We were nervous.
Oh my God, I can only imagine. Holy shit.
Very nervous. Yeah. So, and the general, he spoke to the general, and the general said that where the U.S. has requested that we send you back, to them.
Oh wow.
And but we're not going to do that. They said, but you have 72 hours to leave. You can't stay here anymore. We appreciate you being here. They weren't unhappy with us being there. Obviously, but they they gave us 72 hours, so we had to figure out how to get out of there. And we had just sent our captain home because he had been with us for a few months or a month or so, I'm not sure, but he had just went home, kind of for a vacation, and he was going to come back in a week. And so we were trying to find someone else to captain our boat. And at the last minute, I think we had like 12 hours left, the captain was able to come back. And this the representative, the same one that came initially to the boat to bring the slip, he came, I think, the second day and the third day as well, and said, okay, are you going to be gone? You have X amount of time. And John told him, if I have to swim to get away from here, I'll do that. And so, but we were able to leave there. And then from there, we went to Guatemala. I'm sorry, not Guatemala, the Dominican Republic. And that was a whole another situation. I've been talking a lot. Maybe let you ask another question. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. I'm living through you. Amazing stories. I mean, are you gonna look back with regret at these? I mean, is just kind of are you gonna look back like, oh my God, those were amazing moments?
Definitely with pride, and because they were amazing moments.
Yeah.
John was he was so amazing. I know he gets a lot of flack from people because they didn't understand his methods. But he was an amazing man, and he really, really had a love for people, and he wanted to make everyone around him comfortable. That's what he always tried to do, and he always tried to make sure everyone was enjoying themselves and having a good time, and they had what they needed. You know, this is what was important to him. We would go out. That's why you see the videos and things. It wasn't all fun and games, but he tried to make it entertaining. He tried to make it fun because the situation was so stressful and so heavy for him and myself. No one else was really in any danger, but he and I were. But he tried to make it, a good time for everybody, while still trying to conduct business. And he just was brilliant in that way. And so I will always look back on my time with him as the best time of my life.
What was like his philosophy? If you would have sat down with him, like, John, like, why are we doing this? Can't we? Isn't there another way? Why are we on the run? How was he seeing it from his standpoint morally? Why did he feel like he was doing the right thing?
Because he felt at that time that he had paid more than his fair share of taxes. I believe he said it over $50 million in his adult lifetime. Obviously, when he created the antivirus, and up until he was deported back from Guatemala to America. So in between that time, he had paid taxes, and he felt that he had paid his fair share. And this, taxation being theft was the hill that he wanted to die on, if you will. He really felt passionate about that they were illegal. Obviously, they are unconstitutional income taxes, and just trying to, I don't know if maybe his philosophy, but he just wanted to wake people up. He just wanted to wake people up from their slumber of, this is how life is, because it's always been this way. This is how it has to always be. Because I was raised to believe this, or because I was taught to believe this or do this, this is what I have to do. I can't step outside of the box of normality, whatever that is for each individual. And he wanted to very much break that, that illusion or whatever. He just wanted to shock people out of their slumber, and wake up to the reality of the world around us, and try to help get people present in the now. We're so focused on either the regrets of our past or what we want our future to be, that we're missing what's happening now. But I will say, maybe a philosophy of his, he always would say this at the end of his podcast. I don't know if he said it to you when you guys spoke, but he said, do what you love, and only what you love. And he said, he would always give the example of shiny shoes. And he'd say, if that's what you love to do, he said, do that. And he said, and the world will respond. You'll find a way, you'll figure out a way to make it profitable, to make money from it, and I think that's so true right now. So many people are stuck in jobs that they hate, stuck in families that they, or in marriages that they hate their spouses, the love is no longer there. Children doing things to just please their parents, or whatever it is. There's so many miserable people in this world. And I think if we could accept that, it's a little scary, because you say, okay, well, I have this job, and right now it provides for my family and everything, but I do have this other passion that I want to do, but I'm scared of, what if I lose this income? But if you're really truly passionate about it, you'll find a way to make an income from it. You'll find a way to be able to provide what you need to survive. And I think that's very important. I think it's so important, because it shows in our society. Everybody's so miserable. That's why we're at each other's throats. I mean, I'm not saying that this will cure that, because we'll still be at each other's throats for some reason or another. But I think if people could kind of minimize the misery, that maybe that could be a step in the right direction. Yeah.
Yeah, so his philosophy is, live life to follow your heart, be an individual,
Yeah.
be who you are. That's what life is all about, which I think is why he was so privacy conscious, right? And wanted to build was into these technologies that wouldn't allow for surveillance, because he wanted to make sure that people can preserve their individuality. He saw that as the greatest gift. I couldn't agree more. That's what makes us human. I mean, so what do you think? Do you think was he an optimist about this? Like he saw the impending dystopia upon us, right? Or it's already here, but growing. But he also saw cryptocurrency, this miraculous solution. I mean, did he feel like things were going to work out, and the people would win, individuality would win, or what was his take? Do you know?
I don't know
that. Tough question, obviously. I mean, I can't.
Yeah, it's a tough question.
Yeah.
I don't know that he really ever voiced that.
Was he an optimist about it? Was crypto going to succeed, and we were going to, the state apparatus as we know it would be a former shell of itself. I mean, did he?
Obviously, that was the hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was definitely the hope. But John was an optimist. He was not. John was not an optimist. He was a realist. But I don't think he really would have given that much thought. Now here I'm just kind of stepping in and putting maybe my opinion, just giving my opinion of what I think. I think what he was focused on, it was just trying to wake people up to this,
and then whatever.
And in the way that he could, and also spreading the word about crypto as much as he possibly could, and about the benefits of it to us, the people, because it's created by the people, it's for the people. And as long as we don't let the government come in with their regulations and their foolery, these CBDCs, I hope everyone can see them for what they are. But unfortunately, for the masses, for me, I see that maybe that is something that may be adopted just because of the volatility in this space, and just because of situations like FTX. This is something that people that aren't already in crypto, if they're looking at that and they're seeing that, then they're going to say, no, I don't want anything to do with that. I'm going to use this, what the government has to offer, and not accepting the truth of the government, which is it's corrupt to its core, and they're going to do the same thing with crypto that they've done with the dollar, with fiat currency. If they could do it, that's what they're going to do. And if we allow that to have mass adoption, we're going to be totally enslaved. I'm not sure that there's much that can be done to prevent it. I think that they are working hard towards that goal. Obviously they can't have this cryptocurrency in the hands of the people. They want to have their stronghold on it. They want to be able to control people and collect whatever they want to collect, and they'll be able to have all of our information, and there will be no freedom left once that happens. I think we can maybe ward it off, maybe defend ourselves against it for a while, but I think eventually, I'm sorry if this sounds a little doom and gloom, but I'm just watching how things are happening, and unfortunately the masses, they're still, I think we could see with the situation with COVID, that people are still very much trusting their governments and trusting that they have our best interests at heart, when it's clear that they don't, even with the COVID situation. I think, I read the article about, I forget which, what organization it was, but anyway, there was a mentioning amnesty. We need to have amnesty.
Oh my God, yeah.
And that was such an insane thing, because people were so demonized. People lost their jobs, their homes, their lives. All of these terrible things happened because our governments thought it was a good idea to shut down everything. And there were people, John was one in the beginning, that were saying, this is not, it's not as serious of a problem to shut down a country. You're shutting, keeping everybody locked in their homes. And there's going to be massive ramifications from that. We knew this going in, and yet they still pushed for it. And you still have people defending it, and that's why I say, maybe not, we're not doomed, but definitely that the government will feel, or the powers that be will find a way to worm themselves into the situation, and we'll find ourselves in a kind of dystopian futures akin to George Orwell's 1984.
Damn.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You really killed the moon.
Sorry.
No,
But I think us as individuals, we have a way with the privacy coins. This is why we need more.
No. I think the fight against it, and I think John would agree, because this is basically what he touched upon in that interview, was it's about adoption. It's about people using it. This is what I always say too. That the solution is there. It exists. The technology is there. It works. The network exists. Now we just all need to onboard. So I get what you're saying. The pessimistic view that people just aren't going to, because they're sheep, and we've seen so many examples of it. Most recently with the entire world shutting down, and being fooled into fearing this thing where they were willing to give up all rights, to their government. But I am an optimist. I do think people are, as much as like it hurt to watch the mass psychosis, I do think a lot of people woke up after. There was a percentage, and with the internet, with the internet and podcasts and all the, like, word is getting out, and crypto is getting into people's hands, and people are really, they are sheep. So I think it's gonna take a lot longer than we think. But eventually the herd is all going to rush in the other direction. I feel like it. I don't know. I'm an optimist, but
that's cool. I think I like your optimism, and I could be completely wrong. I am very much a pessimist.
If I wasn't, I don't know what I'd be doing here, right? I'm like, I would just be wasting my time trying to onboard people up there.
I think there is value in education, obviously, and helping people to understand the technology, and onboarding, getting people onboarded. And I think if there was more unity in the space, where people weren't so much in their feelings about whatever coin that they're backing, or whatever crypto celebrity that they're backing, we're very tribal in that way, but we don't have to be at each other's throats, because we are trying to build this ecosystem to replace the current system, and we need all hands on deck. We need everybody's ideas. We need to be sharing ideas. We need to be working together, because we're trying to replace this burdensome system that has been keeping us from being in charge of our own money. And because we're trying to replace that, like I said, we need everybody working together in a way that helps to get more people involved, more people excited about the space, and how hopefully that will bring about mass adoption, greater adoption.
Yeah, no, it's a shame to see, because the community of people that truly believe in the proper ideals of crypto, for what it is, censorship resistant digital cash. It's a small community to begin with, right? There's only so many people on this globe that actually agree, like, that's important tech. And then among them, they're all fighting each other, which way to go because of the bags that they hold. I mean, I'm guilty as charged too, but it's unfortunate. We need to unite. Yeah. I don't know. I guess it will take time.
We also need decentralized exchanges. I'm sorry. I'm just
go ahead.
Decentralized exchanges for sure. That will also help us to to kind of veer away from what's happening currently.
John was working on one. Did he ever launch? Wasn't he like being a part of that one of those projects? I remember when I interviewed him. I don't remember. Did it ever launch or?
I don't think it launched. Obviously when he went to prison, things kind of went sideways with all of that. So I'm not sure what's happening with those projects, but I think Ghost is still going, which was his privacy coin that he was working on. But I'm not sure about his DEX. I know he was working. There was a DEX he was working on, but I'm not sure if
we have Havino. I don't know if you heard of that. That's being built by the Monero community. That's going to be a decentralized exchange. It's Monero based. Sarai, DEX is being built. That's going to be essentially Monero based and a way to swap between other coins, kind of like a Thor chain. I don't know if you're familiar with Thor chain, but it's like a Monero based. So yeah, there's a lot of solutions being built.
Yeah.
But you're right. That's 100% is what we need. We need. I mean, you saw it with FTX, right? It's the same. It's nothing new. It happened with, Mt. Gox years ago, right? Like, this is nothing new. People act like, oh my God, crypto's dead. Like, no, centralized exchanges are dead. They don't work. There's solutions, but you can keep losing your money there until you're like we said, it's just going to take people some time. But once it hits their pockets enough, people will might. And once the other solutions become user friendly enough, which they're going to get there, there's no reason why they can't be both decentralized and easy to access. So, yeah, totally agree. That's a major utility that we need. We need you down in Monerotopia, Mexico. I don't know. Talk to your attorney. Janice, thank you so much. This is an amazing interview. I greatly appreciate you coming on and being so genuine and letting me ask you personal questions in front of, all our millions of viewers. I appreciate it. Thank you for doing it. Where can people, follow you? And we'll continue off on here, but I usually do this just so you get the information out. Like, obviously you want people to go to the petition, just any information that you want people to have, links. Put it out there.
So you can find me on Twitter, obviously at the Mrs. McAfee. So I'm sure people are already there, but that's where you can find updates about what's happening with John. I've also the petition as well, although more so just following me on Twitter. And if there's any news organizations that are listening, I'd be happy to speak with you. I just want to really get the word out about what's happening here in Spain and to really try to apply more pressure on the authorities here so that I'm not here still in limbo waiting, for John's remains to be released, because I want to lay him to rest. He deserves that.
Yeah, guys, sign the petition. It's let's put pressure on this guy. This is bullshit. People deserve, whether you even agree with the story. And the fact is, this government is greatly overstepped here, and it shouldn't be doing this. So sign this petition, and maybe we'll get their attention, right? I think you're doing a great thing. Putting your energy towards this and trying to bring attention to it and make change. And I know it's not easy, especially with the, all the emotions that you're dealing with. So the least we could do is sign your petition. Guys, do it.
Thank you.
Are you down to answer some questions from the community if we transition into the space?
Yeah.
Anybody that wants to come up, just request to be a speaker. Eric, what's going on?
Yeah, hello. I wanted to ask a question to Janice. Did you use other privacy systems or protocols like Tor browser or PGP to encrypt message or some secure mail messaging, etc.?
Yes, I've used that. Tor browser, encrypted messaging. But I think John was because he was so knowledgeable about security that he always felt that encrypted messaging was no longer a viable way of protecting your messages, because there was no longer a man in the middle, if you will. There was that wasn't happening anymore, because our phones were then, were spying on us. So they didn't have to use that sort of encryption, because they already had abilities to get the information before it's encrypted. So he felt that was just unnecessary technology. And because he was so knowledgeable, it's obviously something that I would take his advice on it. So I have used these things, but it's not something that's essential to my everyday life. Good question.
Anybody else want to jump up?
Monero community is always very shy.
It's okay. Well, don't be shy, guys. I will answer your questions to the best of my ability.
Come on, guys. Somebody jump up. Wow, we were just listening. All right, we can leave it at that. We don't need to push the issue. Janice, greatly appreciate you doing all this, jumping on, doing it on a Twitter space. Thank you so much. And yeah, if anybody has a question, oh wait, we got to hold on. Here we go. People are stepping up. See, I just had to threaten them there, and then they would do all the stuff up.
Now,
Joy Raptor, what's going on?
hi, thank you for having me. Thank you, Janice. It was really impactful listening to your story. I was wondering, do you have anything to say to there's a lot of privacy people that, are constantly kicking the bee's nest and posting stuff on Twitter and being controversial. Is there any things that you would advise people not to do, or that you guys did that you're like, maybe shouldn't have poked the bee's nest in that way, or precautions to take that maybe aren't very well known?
Okay, when you say poke the bee's nest, in what way do you mean exactly?
Well, for instance, saying inflammatory things, to like screw the Fed and stuff like. I mean, McAfee got a lot of attention, and for that reason, I think he's done a lot of good. But like, were there any big mistakes looking back on your trail that you would be like, hey, if you're in privacy, if you want to be vocal about privacy, you can do it, but maybe avoid these things. They were difficulties for us.
Okay, that's a really good question. So John was able to be more in your face about things just because they were already coming after him. So there was no need for him to hold his tongue. And there was nothing that he was doing was going to prevent them from coming after him or stop them from coming after them. They were already going to come. And so I think that's why he was able to be so aggressive in his rhetoric. I think that's what I could say. Yes, fierce as well, and fearless. But I think for the average person who's not dealing with the intensity of the situation that we were in, I think there were ways, obviously, to communicate your I guess there's ways to speak without being so inflammatory. I think I'm understanding what you're saying. Yeah, you don't have to be so in your face as John was, but at the same time, though, the situation kind of calls for it. If you look at what's happening in the world today, there's so much blatant corruption, and they just throw it in our faces, and we don't say anything, we don't do anything, or a lot of us take the attitude of, well, what's my little voice going to do? Or this is how it's been, and this is how it's going to always be. But as long as we continue to accept it, that's why they're able to continue to do what they're doing, And I think John's methods were helpful because he was able maybe to get people's attention. We live in an age where people have the attention span of a gnat. You get maybe 30 seconds. That's why TikTok is so popular. You got short videos. People don't have the attention span for in-depth conversations. And so what John did is he carefully crafted his public figure persona to be that shock value, to get that attention. I bet you there's way more people in the world that know that about his Bitcoin prediction than the people that have listened to him actually speak when he's gone and done interviews or gone and done talks at different conferences. They don't know that. And when you hear those things, then you can see he was really passionate and very knowledgeable about what he was saying. And you could see the difference between what he would tweet about and how it was just used to get people's eyeballs so that he then could share what his true message was. So I think people have to find their own voice and their own way of kind of trying to bring awareness. And if they want to kick the hornets, the bee's nest, as you said, just be aware that they will target you and they will come after you, and you have to just be prepared for that.
Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you.
Great questions, guys, and fantastic response. Anybody else? Come on, guys, jump up. Go ahead, Janice.
Yeah, I don't bite, you guys. You can ask questions, but yeah, I would just maybe I'll just speak a little more about the gentleman's previous question about kicking the hornet's nest. Like I was saying, John had this because he was older. People say when you get older, you stop giving a fuck what people think, and you lose the filter, and you just really just say what you want. You do what you want, and that's very much how he lived. And because he knew how the system worked, because he had intimate knowledge of the inner workings of these governments, from them coming after him or just because of the work that he did with his antivirus. I think he felt that it was more his duty, almost like it was his duty. I think he had said to me before that he didn't know why he had to do the things that he did, but it was like something was calling him to speak up, to be this voice, and he didn't necessarily, obviously he didn't want to have to deal with the consequences of that, but he couldn't not be silent. It was just something that he was extremely passionate about, and something that he wanted to be able to bring a voice to, as someone who had been behind on the other side. He had at one point $100 million. So he rubs shoulders with all of these people, and so he understood how things were actually working behind the scenes, behind the curtain. And I think he wanted to share that knowledge with his followers. But maybe someone has a question now. Yeah?
Monegro.
Oh,
hi, Janice.
Hi.
Thanks so much for doing this. It's really cool of you to jump on here and chat with us. I was curious, if I understand correctly, y'all spent quite a lot of time on the ocean, sailing, kind of trying to avoid the long arm of the government. I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit what that was like. How was that experience, being out on the ocean so much?
It was very stressful. I think I've mentioned that, but it was very stressful, and it was fun. And we weren't on. It was just a few months. I think we were from January of 2019 until maybe early July of 2019. So we were traveling on the boat for those, that time, and we went to the Bahamas and Cuba, and that was amazing. Going to Cuba was amazing. The people there were such beautiful people. They were a happy people. Obviously, not happy with their government situation. Obviously not happy with the standard of living. However, they still had joy in their hearts. They still smiled. They still loved and laughed. And that was something that was very inspiring for me to see that, because, obviously I think everyone is familiar with the situation in Cuba, not to mention the U.S., with their sanctions that they still have against Cuba, but also their own government, that's kind of been abusive towards them. So anyways, I think I'm just saying that just because if anyone has an opportunity to go to Cuba, it's just, I like the place because it was, somewhere where America couldn't get their stronghold on, that Cuba really just said, fuck you, America. And they survived, albeit, not in the best of circumstances, but I think that's pretty badass, and the people, again, were just beautiful. And the Bahamas was beautiful. We got to be together. So that was really good. And John, John was John, and he just trying to make sure everybody was happy and comfortable and had a good time, and just trying to relieve some stress for him. He drank and we smoked weed, and it was, obviously from what our posts on Twitter, it looks like it was some sort of awesome time. And it was a lot of times, but it was very stressful for him more so because he had more knowledge of what exactly was happening and how they were coming after him. So I wouldn't recommend it if it's something that you can avoid. Definitely, I would say do that. Try to avoid it. But if it's not, then you just make the most. You make the best of it. You take it one day at a time and handle each crisis as it comes.
What kind of plans do you have for the future? Hopefully, after you can get the all the legal issues sorted out.
Well, to be with my children, I've said this a lot, but I just really want to be with my children. I miss them so much. So just to be a mama there, obviously, that's the biggest thing. But aside from that, I want a book. I want to write a book, obviously, to tell the story of my life, prior to John, and then obviously our story. And I want to help women. I want to help women that are in prostitution or in some sort of form of that business or that world. I want to be able to speak to them and help them in whatever way I can. I want to be able to help, women, men, and children, all that are in abusive situations. Kind of be a voice, give a voice to that as well, because that was my situation. Prior to my meeting John. I just want to be able to help people in whatever way I can, however that comes to fruition. I'm down for that. So right now I'm just using my platform and my relationship with John, obviously, to kind of help cultivate and I guess move me into that direction of being an advocate for women that are in prostitution and in that world, and for people that are in abusive situations as well.
Body, great questions, man. Tony, what's going on, man? What do you got?
Hey, everybody. Hey, Janice. First of all, I'm happy that this came along and it's working, the Twitter Spaces. It's such a good idea, listening to the podcast and then being able to actually ask a question. I think that's just awesome. And now for my question, Janice, you're a very strong woman, and you've been through a lot. And I want to ask you a more positive question. What other passions did John McAfee have? Like, what other interests did he have? Like reading books, or did he enjoy some sports? Or
so he didn't like sports. He was very much someone against that, actually. But his passions, obviously drinking, women, this is his passion. But something not so silly. He loved the piano. He loved playing the piano. And wherever we were, he had to have a piano. And he would play, and it would help to, relieve whatever stress or whatever he was thinking about. He would just zone out, and he would be so at peace whenever he played. So that was always awesome to hear him play. Guns, obviously, that's something he was passionate about, just as a means of protecting, a means of protection. And he was obviously very passionate about that. Reading books, that came more so, when he was in prison. He didn't really read so much before then. He was just always so busy, so I didn't have the time to. And some of the books that he was reading in prison there's a lot of sci-fi, a lot of Jiddu Krishnamurti. I hope I'm saying that right. Krishnamurti.
Oh my God, that's awesome! Wow, that's awesome.
The Dune saga books. I'm trying to think of the science fiction ones. Maybe I'll share them when I get a better idea of what they were. But there was a lot of science fiction and a lot of Krishnamurti that he read when he was in prison. Other passions, I think I covered them all. Yeah, drinking, guns, women, piano playing, and just enjoying life. Just enjoying life and being present in the moment at all times. And also, I guess another passion would be crypto and people. he wanted to, he had a real love for people, and he wanted to do what he could to help them see the reality of their situation, and and help them to see that they could break out from the stagnation of their normality, whatever it was, to have a better life, to make a better experience of living for themselves, by following their heart. As scary as it is to do sometimes, because you're going to be venturing into unknown territory, and that's always scary. That's one of the scariest things for me that I'm dealing with. Kind of venturing into the unknown, and sometimes it's safer to just stay in what you've been doing. Stay in that cycle of whatever it is, whether it's going to a job that you hate, or staying in a loveless marriage, or whatever it is. But I think he just wanted people to inspire people to have the courage to step out into that unknown, and just to follow your heart, and trust that by following your heart, your path will be revealed to you as you follow your heart.
Beautiful. Thank you. That's a very beautiful response, and I'm happy that you went into details of what books you read, because that's going to be my second question. And Jiddu Krishnamurti, yes, that's you said it correctly, and he's an amazing author. So, all in all, thank you so much for joining the podcast. Thank you so much for the lengthy response, and also humorous, because you didn't mention the woman and all the other things. So thank you so much, Janice. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, wow. Also, really quickly, I'm sorry. I just want to add something about books. John is also an author, and he wrote mini books that you can go and find. I think they're still being sold on Amazon. And he told me that the book that he was most proud of is Journey to Self, I believe it's called. Journey to Self. And so that's a good book if you want to read something that, in his words, and also his other books as well. But those are good books to read, just to get a little deeper glimpse into his mind,
We need to sell those at Monerotopia for Monero. I gotta check that out.
Yeah.
Roy, what's going on, man? Go ahead, Roy.
Hi, Roy. Are you there?
Oh, I don't know. Somebody else? Anybody else have a question?
My mic was off. Sorry.
Here he is. Go ahead, Roy.
I'm so sorry about that. Janice, you lived in a Faraday cage.
Yes.
I'm one of those people that's known as a targeted individual. And I followed John for a very long time. And I was fascinated by his Faraday cage and the jammers that he had in his place as well. Do you think that protected you and kept the bad people away from you?
It most definitely did. Just to correct you a little bit, we didn't actually live in the Faraday cage, but when we wanted to get online, we would go into the room, and it was just something that was temporary until we could have a more permanent solution. But it definitely was very effective. We obviously didn't use our devices outside of the room. We kept them in the room, and again, it was very effective as far as keeping people away from knowing where we were exactly. And actually, just to share this little bit, that when John was arrested in Barcelona, it wasn't because they had actually tracked him electronically. It was because they had flagged his passport as stolen. So when he went to check in for his flight, they stopped him, or they detained him because his passport was flagged as stolen. And once they detained him, that's when they then issued the warrant for his arrest, and then they then took him to prison. So it was very effective as far as keeping people from knowing where we were.
Right, thanks ever so much, Janice, because I remember you were going out for a meal one night. I know this must have been a few years ago. And I thought to myself, if you're going out for a meal, surely somebody would tittle tattle that would see you and John out.
Yeah. You know what? Honestly, when we would go out, not a lot of people knew who he was. So that was, very good. And once people did start realizing who he was, they, he was just a guy. They like he wasn't wanted, if you will. There's like not wanted posters hanging up of him. You know what I'm saying? There was actually not even any warrants against him at the time because we were able to travel to Italy and Germany
Oh wow!
and other places. So we were able to travel throughout Europe during this time, and there was never any issue. There was never any issue with the authorities as far as detaining him because of these charges. There was no problem like that at all. So this is just something that happened in Barcelona, I guess, because once he was detained and in custody, then they had the means to then issue their warrant for these charges and have him then properly detained so that they could have him extradited.
Right, wow. I just want to say thanks ever so much for letting me speak, and bless your heart, Janice, and peace and love to you.
Thank you, Roy. Peace and love to you as well.
Wow, Roy, thanks for stopping in. That's awesome.
Thank you, Douglas.
Yeah. Janice, I saw actually you did a podcast recently, or you were on somebody's podcast when I was researching it today, where you guys were talking about Faraday cages, right? I think you had somebody that actually like sells them or builds them.
Yes, actually, he was talking about how effective that they are, but they're very expensive, and so that's the issue with if you're just an average person who's trying to figure out how to protect yourself in this way. It's extremely expensive to try to get yourself a Faraday cage. However, he spoke about some material that you can get, and it works in the same way. Again, if you look at the podcast, it's my podcast I'm doing with Rob Loggia. It's called the No Sugar Podcast. Shameless plug. But if you go to this to the podcast, maybe I will put a link here so people can watch it. But he speaks about this material that you can use, and it's not very expensive. And if you know how to sew, you can sew it into your a bag or something, and it works in the same way that it will block the signal. And it'll keep people from knowing where you are. But you still have to remember that you still have the same habits. You're still going to have the same habits, your online habits. That's probably the most difficult thing, I think, for people to understand. If you're really in a situation where you're trying to hide out from people, you have to be aware of those habits that will identify you online. So like obviously you're going to be on social media probably, or you're going to be contacting family members or friends, and these are also ways that people can know that you're you, by even if you're able to keep people from knowing where you are, maybe you still have these identifiers that you have to be aware of as well. And maybe if you're really in a situation where you need to hide out, you would have to obviously probably cut off that contact. So, these are just an extreme example of what you would have to do. Obviously, for us, that wasn't something that was necessary to do. We just needed to not have people know where we were. So, we were able to speak and be on social media and call family and do all those normal things with no problem. And just really quickly, I want to correct something about the book that I mentioned that John wrote, and it's actually called The Fabric of Self, not Journey to Self. So if you go online and you want to check that book out, The Fabric of Self was the book that John told me he was most proud of writing. Okay, but I hope I answered that question.
Very cool. Very cool. Anybody else got a question? All right, guys, we'll end it there unless anybody else wants to come up? Anybody?
Would you mind if I? Yeah, would you mind if I? Basically, because I'm a targeted individual, I've had to do a lot of research on tracking us. We don't actually need to be microchipped, and they don't actually need our DNA to track us anymore. They can actually track us off of our frequencies. And this is a known fact now, and that is why a lot of targeted individuals throughout the United States, throughout Europe, Japan, China are all coming forward because they're getting tremendous headaches. And apparently the satellites or the cell towers can latch onto us anywhere in the world. I was traveling to Australia and New Zealand, and I went to Morocco and Spain, and I was tracked all through those countries without, as far as I know, without any tracking device within me. So I'm wondering if the authorities would have known where John was and were just biding their time. What are your thoughts?
I don't think so. Just because we were able to have, because I had been with John so long, I was able to recognize when we were being followed, like, boots on the ground sort of situation. And because, John was a master at disinformation, and, he would post pictures or videos, and giving kind of an idea of where we were. He never shared that information when we were actually in the location. So, I never saw any, never saw any evidence of people physically being in our space. Again, when we traveled, even when we were traveling, we still had we weren't in a Faraday cage, but we still had the jammers, and there were some other things that were done to our electronic devices in order to ensure that we weren't tracked electronically. So we had that protection there. I can't really speak to your situation, only that maybe is it possible that you had your phone, if you had your phone with you, obviously that's the biggest spy device that we carry with us, a phone, laptop. Even if you think it's off, it's never off. It's even if it shuts down, it's still not off. Ever since they took the batteries out of our phones, and we can no longer remove the battery from the phone, your phone is still on. You have to always assume that it is still on. And they have devices like Stingrays where it connects up to their Stingray. So instead of you connecting up to a noted cell tower, you're actually connected to their Stingray, and they're able to download spy applications onto your device. So it's not, I guess it's not definitely plausible that they have such advanced technology that they can now track people this way. But I can't really speak to that. But
Thanks ever so much, and thanks for giving me the chance to speak, and really appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Roy, how did you find us today? Are you a Monero Talk listener, or was that you were following Janice? Just curious how you made your way here.
I actually made a plea to Janice about 2 or 3 years ago. I said, could you follow me back, please, Janice? And John was alive then. And Janice was kind enough to follow me back, and it came up on my feed about half an hour ago. So I tweeted it out, hoping that other people would listen in as well.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for joining.
Very cool.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Are you familiar with Monero, Roy?
I'm not. No, I've just seen Monero Talk though. So, are you a truther channel?
Yeah. What do you? Have you ever heard of Monero? You never even heard of it?
No, I'm an Englishman. I've heard of quite a lot, but I've got to be honest, I haven't come across Monero.
Really? Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry for that.
No, we must be doing something wrong.
Oh well, no, I haven't, because obviously I share what I can, wide and far.
So Monero, you know Bitcoin, right? I assume you know Bitcoin?
Yes.
So Monero is the anonymous, untraceable version of Bitcoin.
Right. and if I give you £1, how much will you give me back?
In Monero?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know how much a pound of it's like point whatever 02 Monero. Yeah.
Oh right, so it's untraceable.
It's untraceable. So it's the same basic technology as Bitcoin. You know, it uses the blockchain. It uses a public ledger as well, but the ledger itself is obfuscated, so you can't peer into it or surveil it in any way.
Right. Oh no, I'll Google it when I'll Google it shortly. Well, no, because I was never really into that, because I'm an old boy now.
Well, I did my job for the day. I always like to onboard a new user to Monero every day. So thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm ready to call it. Janice, thank you so much. I mean, you've been with us for so long. We did the interview and now this. I greatly appreciate you taking the time. Everybody that's listening, I hope you enjoyed this. This is the first time we ever did this. So we normally record Monero talks and just edit them and put them up. But now we're going to try to add this feature where we stream them live on Twitter Spaces as we do them, so people could ask questions at the end. I guess I could give one last opportunity for a final question to Janice before we close it out. Anybody?
Yes, me. Janice, one more question, please. Are you optimistic about the future, or pessimistic, or how do you feel about it?
The future in general, or speaking about a specific future, like the future of America or the future of crypto? Or
Good question. Like in general. In general.
Second time she's been asked this today, man.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that. Sorry.
No. It was different.
It was earlier on the
similar.
interview. Yeah.
I didn't guess that. Sorry.
I am probably a pessimist, but in general, I feel like the future is unwritten, and people, we can surprise ourselves often, and I think, like Douglas was saying on our interview, I think that people are waking up to the absolute shit show that our world is, especially after everything that happened with crypto. And I think there's more people that are waking up to the fact that our governments do not at all have our best interests at heart. And I think that there are more people that are kind of trying to do what they can to wake up those around them, to this reality. Because I think once there's enough people awake, then we can figure out what to do about it. Once there's enough people that are no longer sticking their head in the sand when it comes to these, corruption situation, then I think we can do something about it. And I don't think it's necessarily something as drastic as overthrowing the government, but maybe just getting rid of those career politicians, or I don't know, it's just something I'm just thinking of out loud. But to answer your question, I guess, yes, I am optimistic about the future. That once people can accept what the reality is of their lives and of their situation, I think then we can come together and figure out how to slowly or together steer the ship into a better direction than what it's heading into now. I hope that answered your question.
All right. Heavy stuff. Janice.
Yes, very heavy.
Thank you so much. Very, very well said. Greatly appreciate all your genuine responses this evening. Thanks everybody for participating. We're going to be doing this on a weekly basis. So if you're new to this, you can follow Monero Talk, or follow us here on Twitter and on YouTube. And we'll leave it at that. Janice, thank you.
Thank you, Douglas.
A round of applause to Janice, guys. How do we do that here? All right.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Roy.
Pleasure. Cheers, Janice.
Do you have a Monero address we can send tips to? We like doing that in the Monero community. If you want to tweet out a Monero address at some point.
Okay. Yeah. I don't need your tips, you guys. You can do something really good with that money. Help a homeless person, or save a puppy from or something.
we just like sending and using. We just like sending and using Monero. So just a nice way to say thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Douglas.
Good night, guys.
Good night. Oh, God bless.
God bless.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode. We release new episodes every week. You can find and subscribe to our show on YouTube, Odyssey, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Go to monerotalk.live to subscribe for a full list of places where you can watch and listen. If you want to interact with us, guests, or other podcast listeners, you can follow us on Twitter. And please leave us a review on iTunes. It helps people find the show, and we are always happy to read them. So thanks so much, and we look forward to being back next week.